You've come to the right place if you're looking to create, launch, and scale a high-value online training program. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of LifterLMS, the most powerful learning management system for WordPress. Stay to the end. I've got something special for you. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. I'm joined by a special guest. She's back on the show. It's Lindsay Halsey from Pathfinder SEO. You can find her and Pathfinder at pathfinderseo.com. We're going to get into all topics SEO and AI and getting found on the internet. But first, welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
Let's just jump right in. And the big question I know a lot of people have if you're building a website or an e-learning website is how is AI changing the behavior of people that are going to their laptop or their phone or their computer to search for stuff? Like what's happened in the past 4 years?
A lot's happening and things are evolving reasonably quickly. And really, AI is starting to reshape the way we think about search and search engine optimization. And some of the kind of behavior changes, and we can dig into a few of these in more detail. The first is that there is the opportunity for essentially like generative responses directly on Google, Yahoo, Bing, right? So when you go on Google and you type in your search query, you get a new row called AI overviews. And in there, you get a generated response that has sites or citations and some links to the websites that sort of trained up the AI. But that you may, in this case, one of the things changing is you may decide as the end user not to click through to a website for information, but rather to just receive the response directly from Google. And then, as Google often sees, do another Google search. And you can have that more conversational nature. If you're in the US right now, there's AI mode, which allows you to take that conversation further and continue on almost like you would with ChatGPT. So that's just one of the things that we're seeing happen right now is in some ways people feel like the search engines continue to make it harder to get traffic to your website because Google is answering things directly in the search results. So it's the people also ask boxes that used to pop up where you could just see the result, or you put in something like movie showtimes near me and it just tells you the showtimes. You never go to a website. You can think of AI overviews and AI mode as being in that similar vein of changing user behavior. But on the flip side, the more optimistic piece of this all is that it really is an opportunity for your brand, for your business, for your training, for your expertise to get shown directly on Google to build brand awareness and to educate, which I know a lot of your audience is all about education and training. And so I see the positive side of these changes, but in the short run, one of the things a lot of businesses are experiencing is a decrease in sessions or traffic from organic search.
Before we zoom in, like on a macro level, at what point, like we often still want to get the visitor to our website to buy the movie tickets or take our paid course or read the full article for the content creator. Where does the wall stop where AI isn't enough? Even if you think about teaching a course online, there's pressure from people just learning a skill or knowledge directly from AI without needing a course. Do you have any thoughts on like where does the creator still hold territory in terms of getting that traffic all the way over and out of the chat interface?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, like the biggest thing I think about, because we're in the same situation as we're in the field of SEO education. And so when somebody searches for something like how to learn SEO, they're unlikely to click through to our course about intro to SEO, right? That would have been the old user experience somebody would have made. But now you're more likely to either put that query into ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, or Claude, something like that, and get some structured response on how to actually learn this tool or this skill set. Or you might put it into Google and see the AI mode or the AI overview and not click through to a website. But I still see the role of the human expert is essentially that we are still human. And so we want to connect with other humans. And so we only go so deep with where the AI response will take us. And the way you can create value in this space is to have contrast. right? So have an opinion, take a corner, have an opinion about what's happening in your space, share something unique, tell stories that are like basically founded in real world experience so that your content on your website is different from all of the AI generated response that's just average out there, and that you as an expert really shines through. Because at the end of the day, there is a trust issue with AI. And when you're going to invest time in learning, you want to know who you're learning from and that they're a genuine expert. And I personally think a lot of user behavior will basically touch on the high level of, hey, it's nice to get a structured response about how to learn SEO. But at the end of the day, if you're really going to dig in and get hands on, you're likely going to benefit from learning from a human and not from the AI.
Sort of a beginner question. And first, I just want to say I got a ton of value out of working with you and your team at Pathfinder on leveling up our SEO game, even though we'd been at it for a long time. But just to give a real specific example, we want to rank at Lifter LMS for the best WordPress LMS plugins. And, we had an article on that. It was like ranked 23. Now we're regularly at 1 or 2. And I
Awesome.
give Pathfinder a lot of credit from working with you guys on like really going deep on SEO and throwing every tactic in the book at that. And it worked and it sticks. It's not like it's moving, it stays there and we're constantly refreshing it. But
Awesome.
to get to my beginner question, I think it sometimes when I saw AI come on, I'm like, wow, it's great. We've been in the space for over a decade. So the AI and the language model already knows a lot about us. And I'm really glad we're not new, is the thought I have. So, what would you say to somebody who's new in a competitive space to get at least into that AI conversation as a source or a personality or whatever? Because if you're not established, that seems even harder than it's ever been.
Yeah, definitely. So, a couple of tips there. The first one is go very specific. It's really hard to rank for something general, right? Take your expertise and create a piece of content and rank for the big keywords. But one of the things that's shifting here is people are putting a lot of information in their queries in more detail. They're putting like the who, how they're trying to get from point A to point B, what those points might be. All sorts of different scenarios are shifting in how we search online. And so when you start to think about the kind of content you create, instead of playing in the like general competitive keyword space, if you go hyper specific, you're going to find the right audience and likely get more visibility more quickly. And so this is that concept that's been around in SEO forever, which is that concept of the long tail of SEO, that you don't just go for like the mothership 2 word keyword phrase that everybody else is optimizing towards and has thousands or millions of searches a month, but rather you create more specifically shaped pieces of content, and that goes further faster. And so you see a shift in people's content marketing, for example, away from the definitive guide to whatever the subject is into really specific pieces. And so that'd be my biggest tip is invest in content marketing that really showcases a specific topic and then layers in who it's for, because that's what Google is getting better. And the rest of the search engines and really AI is getting better at connecting those dots between the individual behind the search. So that's a first piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is when you're new, you also need to go out and think about how do I build a little like authority and trust out there in this space? And that's one of the things that established brands get to rely and relax a little bit on is having a domain and a brand that has a lot of mentions and backlinks and things like that to it. When you're just getting started, you don't have those things, but you can go out and find the low hanging fruit. And so, what I mean by that is if you're just getting started, consider creating a Google Maps listing, even if you don't consider yourself a local business. And the reason is because it's a place where you can get some reviews online, and it really is training up the AI quite a bit. Reviews on anything go a long ways. So, showcasing reviews on your own website, getting them on Google Maps, anywhere you can get a review is helpful. One of the things you'll notice in a lot of the AI generated responses is things when they start to actually talk about businesses in a space, is that they put in like reviewers or people often say things like that. So they are able to very quickly process all of the reviews out there about, say, Lifter LMS and smush them into a 1 to 2 sentence phrase that's a synopsis. And then if there's a list of like best whatever plugins in this space, etc., then they're going to be able to do the same for your competitors. So just starting out right out of the gate and going and trying to pick up a couple of reviews, whether it's Google Maps, Facebook reviews, directly reviews you put on your own website, that'll build a little credibility. And then trying to get those backlinks, which is one of the ways you can do it, is just sharing your expertise. So if you invest in writing a blog post on a topic, try to get out there and be a guest on somebody else's podcast, for instance. Try to get out there and share your knowledge and your experience, and do that on as a webinar guest, a podcast guest. All of those things go a long ways in building a little bit of brand recognition and authority.
It seems like for both AI and SEO, or just the search engine results pages, there's a lot more emphasis on things like Reddit conversations.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's Google's prioritizing like real people having a discussion, not some listicle about the best whatever.
Yeah, the Reddit thing has been surprising to me as somebody that like doesn't tend to go to a lot of forums for answers and things like that. And I thought it was a fad and that Google would play around with it and then back off. And we've seen that before, but it does not appear to be a fad. Reddit really does appear to be, it gets strong placement and visibility on Google in and of itself. So being there, and it's training up the AI, and it's seemingly not going anywhere. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's because like you said, it's real people, and now it can really take all of the information about a topic or a brand or whatever, all of the conversation on Reddit, and create a structured sort of understanding of that. And yeah, Reddit's kind of crushing it right now in the SEO world, and it's in a lot of those kind of best of queries, etc.
Uh, Let's talk about AI for content creation for SEO as an example.
Yeah.
When I've tried to write a whole article with AI and I'm like, it's just not there. But for research or like building on what I already have, it's great. But and also related to this, do you get penalized if you just publish some AI generated content that's totally AI generated?
Good question. So the first, you do not get penalized by publishing AI generated content. There's not like a flag that says created by AI, don't show in the search results, or even worse, penalize the brand for it. Instead, it's just that AI generated content doesn't really add new value, doesn't have contrast, doesn't feel as powered by genuine experience and authority. So it's unlikely to perform well. So I really think about basically this human centered approach to content marketing that's AI supported. Yes, I think AI tools are amazing. I haven't published a blog post in the last year without relying on some component of AI to help me create the content, refine the content, etc. That being said, there's always a human involved. And so I find that sometimes it creates a better final product when the AI, it takes our weaknesses and can fill in some gaps depending on how you're using it. It also speeds the process up. But, and that content is doing, we've done some experiments like fully human powered content, didn't touch AI, fully AI powered content, and that sort of middle ground, that human centered AI supported. And we're not finding that the totally AI created content doesn't do anything, but we're doing just as well in our performance and our rankings and making it quicker when we go with that kind of combo approach versus when we just go 100% human powered with no AI, if that makes sense. So you got to figure out kind of the workflow that works well for you. I think the research piece or just creating structure and a frame can be really helpful. Sometimes we are so close to our area of expertise that one of the things we struggle with is seeing the big picture and teaching it, whether it's in a blog post, a YouTube video, or behind a course paywall or wherever the teaching is. Sometimes like we're so zoomed in and narrowed in, we skip the beginning or we miss a step or something like that. And I personally find AI to be really helpful for, hey, here's this topic I'm thinking about writing about. Here's who I'm trying to reach with it. Help me create an outline, etc. And then I'll do some writing and then I'll have it reshape it. I've used it in so many different ways to help support our content marketing.
One of the challenges of LMS websites is there's a lot of content that's not visible to the search engine.
Right.
So, what, because it's behind a login and that kind of thing, how should a course creator structure their website today to with SEO and AI discoverability in mind?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And that is to say, you need to give away some of that expertise and content for free, not being behind a paywall, so that you are part of the conversation, whether it is the conversation on Google or ChatGPT, et cetera. You want to contribute to training the AI in your subject matter, and you want to get known as an authority in that space. And so to do that, you have to strategically decide what content is free and on the blog and what content is paid and behind a paywall. And there's no one solution to that in my mind's eye. But one of the biggest things I like to do is think about, if I do give this content away for free, right? Like it's on a blog post and it starts to get traction. What's the bridge between getting them, if you're selling a course or a membership or whatever the purchase now is? What's the little intermediate step that's more of a call to action in the middle where I'm going to also get a little something in return? So a lot of times, if I publish a blog post that's educational, etc., I'll embed a YouTube video in it. Like I'll really try to make it great, right? Add value, share, teach, etc. But then the in content CTA won't just be the buy the thing, buy the course, or buy the membership. It'll be the next step in something for free where it can still trade that email address and trade for a download or an email series or whatever it is tied to the topic at hand. So if I'm going to give something away in the blog post, I want to make sure that my conversion rate on that blog post to picking up an email address is somewhere in the 5% range. And I find if I tie the call to action directly to the topic at hand, so it's like the next thing you would want on this, and I'm willing to give away just like 1 ounce more for free, then I get a lot of value out of that. And if I just stick a call to action on there, sign up for a newsletter, it gets less than a 1% conversion rate. And then you start to say, was creating that traffic and giving it away, that content away for free, worthwhile? It's harder to measure.
Learned this from you all that like original research is really valuable.
Really
Uh,
valuable.
what are expand on that? Let's say we have a subject matter expertise in XYZ. How do we do that original research or publish it in a way that it's beneficial to AI and SEO?
Yeah, so that's always been something that's been beneficial to SEO because one, it shows your expertise, right? You did original research and you're publishing it in a scientific type format in a blog post, sharing that research. It gets quoted, it gets linked to more often. Other people might come back and look at that original research and then want to link to it. So it does a lot of high value work. In this era, it's even more valuable because it is that original type research that the AI would like to be trained on and then is more likely to cite you, et cetera, and to showcase your expertise. Anywhere where you can publish that original research, it's tricky. Like in the field of SEO, it's really hard. Most of the kind of big original research is coming out of big SEO software companies that have access to massive amounts of data, et cetera. So you have to think about like, where is your place? But that being said, even if you can't get like original research in your space, one of the things you may be able to do is genuine storytelling, etc. And so weaving that in is something that I know we did in some of our blog posts last year, and it really made a big difference. Like basically taking the whole intro and starting with a story in the first person and making it relatable and talking about something that happened. And so it's not research like a compilation of lots of data, but it's this like singular point in time. And that's helped our content resonate more with sort of Google's helpful content algorithms that are really looking at that sort of expertise, authority, and trust behind a post.
Was related to research is doing like charts and graphs and tables and gifs and all that stuff like visualizing data, and that's so easy to do now, and even in Canva you
It
can like
is.
give it some numbers and it gives you a nice looking chart branded to your brand.
Exactly. And so you can put that together with so much more ease now. And that also makes it easier to create downloads and things like that, where somebody might be willing to like, hey, I read through it, but download the paper version or the PDF version, and you're going to email it to a colleague or something like that. So it is a lot easier to create that high value and to just push yourself to take your content a little further. And so one thing I often think about that I think really applies to the folks listening to this podcast is that a lot of times we take our expertise, right, and you go and you create something with it, like a course or a training module or whatever it might be. But you have an area of expertise and you create this thing, and then you're like, okay, the next thing I'm going to do is a blog post. And then what we tend to do, if you're anything like me, is like move to the next topic, right? You're like, I did the blog post, I did the thing, right? That was the marketing piece and the creation of whatever the training material, that was like the sales piece or the product piece. But really, I try to make myself sit in that space for a lot longer than I ever wanted to. So a while back, Google Analytics launched GA4, right? And it was a topic I really didn't want to be an expert in, but became one. And I just decided to sit in that space for 3 months. And that meant I wrote a blog post, I created a YouTube video, I created social posts, we added paid social behind the paid social posts. I reached out to 6 podcast webinars, things beyond like our brand. And I was a guest on them talking about GA4, what's changing, how to handle it. Then I self hosted a couple of webinars. By the time those 3 months were over, I was totally exhausted. But the value is that I built up a cloud of expertise and authority in that space that Google could pick up on it. So all the content I created in that space was performing really well at the time because I was doing all these other things. And so that's one area that I think once you decide, hey, this is something I'm going to be an expert, this is like a little facet of my expertise that I'm going to go down a rabbit hole in, make yourself stay in that for a little bit longer so that you really exhaust like all avenues. And to me, it's not just SEO, but it is all of those actions were things that helped us build domain authority, trust, all these other signals that then help our other content. And it's a snowball effect, if that makes sense.
I didn't entirely get off the content treadmill, but I started going back, and instead of doing a new post, make an old one better.
Yeah.
Like the really important pillar posts, like coming back to them week after week. And that's how we're really able to move up to top ranking. It wasn't about like continually pumping out new content.
Yeah, exactly. So a content revision with something new, like an infographic or some kind of new visual. And one of the other areas of SEO that we know that Google's looking at is when you do win the click and traffic comes to your website from Google, Google is looking to signals around things like engagement rate, engagement time. If people are like hitting the buy now button, going to other web pages, et cetera, they're looking at that user experience because what Google wants to see is, oh, this query led to this click, and then they had a really great experience over here that has a positive reflection on Google. So that those are dwell signals in like SEO terms. And so when you take an existing blog post and you add a YouTube embed video in it, or you add a cool image, or you update the intro so it's a little catchier, or you add some kind of a call to action that maps to the topic, any of those things is going to be a rising tide because it's going to lead to a little bit better, like incrementally better user experience, which then trains up Google's algorithms and its machine learning to send more traffic your way. And that was one of the things that we've really seen over the last year or two is like a certain number of posts are just taking off because they get that self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas other posts that we think are really great totally fall flat. And I look at it a little bit like baseball. Even the best hitters train a ton and they think they are going to get to the plate and they're going to be able to hit a home run. When it comes to content marketing, you just have to keep your at bats going and know that you're going to hit a couple of singles and a couple of doubles and then a home run from time to time. And it's even for experts, it can be a little hard to predict which ones are really going to go the farthest. But it's all about getting back up to the plate and getting a new piece of content or trying again, revising something, etc.
If you do a major rewrite or revision, first, is it okay to change the publish date to today? Or should you not do that? Or does that even matter?
I do change it, and recency really does matter in SEO and all of the AI getting found in AI. So yeah, recency matters. I do change the publish date as long as I actually add new value to the post. If I fix a typo, that doesn't count.
This episode of LMS Cast is brought to you by Pop-Up Maker, the most powerful, trusted pop-up solution for WordPress. Whether you're selling online courses or memberships, Pop-Up Maker helps you grow your email list, boost sales conversions, and engage your visitors with highly customizable pop-ups. Imagine creating custom opt-ins, announcements, and promotions that actually convert. I personally use Pop-Up Maker on my LifterLMS websites for lead magnet opt-ins, cart abandonment, upsells, downsells, and guiding users to helpful content. Pop-Up Maker is an essential tool for growing my email list and making more money online through my website. Ready to take your website to the next level? Head on over to wppopupmaker.com/LMScast and save 15% on your order. Discount automatically applies when you visit through that link. Pop-Up Maker also has an awesome free version, so you can just use that as well. Go to wppopupmaker.com/LMScast and save 15% off your order or get started with the free version now. Get more leads and sales on your website with Pop-Up Maker today. Now back to the episode. Related to that, I see a lot of people, and I'm guilty myself of doing this. If you have a best of XYZ in 2023, but it's 2025 now, if all you're gonna do is just change the date, it's that does that help or not really?
Yeah, so those posts can be really, at least they were really hard to write. Like I remember years ago writing best SEO plugins for WordPress and like how much time and resource our team put into. We already used all the plugins, but figuring out who had what feature, what price point, all this stuff, like creating charts and diagrams, it was a massive amount of work to create a post like that. And so then, yeah, before you know it, 2023 becomes 2025 in this case. And it is okay to put the new publish date. I think as an end user, I wouldn't respond very well to the best whatever of 2025 and then see a 2023 publish date. I'd probably hit the back button and be like, that doesn't align. There's just a quick like cork in the system. But in terms of refining that content, it'd be a great thing to be able to just drop into Chat GPT and say, here's this post I wrote, like on the best of, what should I consider updating, what's out of date, etc. And go through some prompts to try to help you modernize the content enough so that you feel good about putting the new date stamp on.
Question. I get, and I'm sure a lot of people get like all these emails requesting backlinks that aren't very good. Besides creating great content and being a guest on somebody else's platforms, is there any other way to think about getting backlinks that if you want to put some effort into it and just come off well in your efforts?
Good question. So yeah, you still like SEO in some ways has evolved a lot and hasn't evolved at all in other ways, right? So there's still people sending you these random emails, will you link to me? Hit delete on all of those. There's still people trying to sell you link building at scale, etc. Or even link building not at scale, right? So paid link placement where you can go and buy a backlink in like blogger outreach and things like that. But at the end of the day, what I always like to do is take a step back from my overall like online presence and think about my real world, like how your business does business, right? Who do you do business with? Not necessarily who are your customers, because it's pretty unusual for customers to link back to your website, but more like who are your partners in an ecosystem, etc. So as an example, if you were an interior designer, you would probably get referrals from other architects, general contractors, etc. And you would probably also refer business to them, right? You work in an ecosystem and there's all these adjacent people that anyone who's building a house needs more than just an interior designer. They probably have 5 to 10 other professionals like working in their ecosystem space. So most interior designers have all these relationships in the real world, but almost none of them are actually modeling that for Google, right? So if I were to chat with you over coffee, you could tell me about all these pals and people that you do business with and refer. But if I looked on your website and if I looked on their websites, I'd never know that there was any kind of real world integration. And so in the spaces that we're all in, we can think of those types of counterparts, like who's in your ecosystem. And you don't always have to do a webinar or podcast, which takes a lot of time and effort to be able to leverage those relationships in a positive way. So it still works to get links from people in more static ways. If you have a our partners page and they have an our partners page, you might link to those types of things. You can also give a testimonial away, right? So we have like an agency that helps us with our marketing and our web design. We could give that agency a testimonial of what it's been like to be a client of theirs, and they could put that on their website and then link back from where it says my name to my website, right? So I can do smaller ways of showing like the ways that we do business. You could do something like that for your accountant or a tax advisor, like anybody, where you have like real world professional relationship. You can go out and come up with creative ways to show Google and model for Google what's going on there. Other businesses like are really generous, or maybe you're on a board of director. You could be generous in your community by supporting nonprofits. You could be on a member of a board of directors, et cetera, like related or not related to your business, but part of you, who you are, right? So things that we do beyond it. I know my business partner, she's on the board of the skating club for her daughter. So she has a little bio on the skating club website, and somewhere in the bio, it mentions our businesses and it links to them, right? That's pretty low hanging fruit. You're just already doing those things, but sometimes you just need a little bit of follow up to go pick up those links. So there's not one way to build a backlink network. And I think the biggest way to be successful is to weave it into your real world marketing. So it's not something you do because I'm sitting down to do link building. It's something I do because I'm thinking about marketing and partnerships and trying to add value on the internet and all of these ways and showcase partners, et cetera.
Related to authority, I feel like the author page, like on a WordPress site or a social media bio or the about page on a business website, like what can we do just to best practice explain who we are, what we do, what our expertise is? Because that stuff really matters, I think.
It matters a ton. It's actually one of the things I'm working on our own website right now is like making sure the who shines through behind your content. I think a lot of times as marketers, our initial inclination is I'm building a business website. So I need to look like a business, right? And so you almost take the human out of it. Now you want to be putting the human back into everything, right? So if you have a blog post, under the blog post, it should have the publish date, who the author was, and then that little like part where it says your name, it should link to your authorship page. And ideally, you have a great authorship page that could be you talking in the first person. Hi, I'm so and so. And then there could be a section there like also seen as, or here are some blog posts I've written, etc. So we invest a lot of time into creating both the individuals, and then also the about page could be, depending on how your team is structured, could be more about the business, but it could also just be about you. But if you are a one person business, then you need one killer page all about you, which always feels a little uncomfortable. But once you start putting it together, it's not so bad. And if you have a team, then you want to try to create something similar for each team member and really make sure you're connecting the dots and showcasing the humans behind the business.
How does social media impact SEO and AI discoverability?
Good question. In general, I've always said social media has overlap, but not nearly as powerful as like backlinks or Google Maps reviews, et cetera, because a lot of that is behind a paywall, and Google struggles to get trained up on all of those social conversations. Social has so much paid space right now, too. It's very complicated. And so the search engines never really wove social very well into its algorithm directly. So that's still the case. Like social still only plays some overlap. But I think now we're in this like massive period of change and evolution, and technology has gotten obviously so much smarter. And so I think we're going to see a little bit more change there. I think of social as standing on its own two legs, it's its own marketing channel, but it helps me with SEO because if you put, say, a social post out about a blog post you wrote, and then it gets picked up and seen by your colleagues, your friends, the people that follow your business, it gets more likely to then pick up a backlink because someone's, oh, you remember I saw like Chris wrote this cool thing on this topic. And then I remember it and I drop it in a blog post, or I drop it in an email I send, like news from the web and things like that. So, yeah, social is weaving in more and more. I haven't spent a lot of time studying how well AI, like ChatGPT itself, is able to like pull from the social sphere. But right now, there's a big push for making sure your website content is training up the AI as effectively as possible. And that rests a little more on things like technical SEO. And there's a new ish file called an LLMS TXT, which is a file that gives directions on how to crawl the website and index it for learning language models. So There are so many parallels right now between getting found and included in conversations on Google and on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity. It's not really like a comparison of are you going to invest in SEO or invest in some of these emerging marketing areas, but more of a convergence that the fundamentals work across the board.
Related to the LLMS.txt
Yeah.
file, some of the SEO plugins now just create this for you. I've looked at it, and what I realize is it's pretty good, and it's probably my own fault for having an old site and what it's pulling from. It's not the best. So I realize I need to create my own LLMS.txt file, but use that structure.
Yep.
But related to that, you've got that TXT file. Let's say at the end of a blog post, you put FAQ questions that either Google Instant Answers or AI mode, I forget what overview mode or whatever. Like, how exact is it? Does the keyword phrase have to match? And is the AI just going to spit out exactly what you said, or is it going to modify it or quote it, or how do we think about that? Because you can get lost in the details of the wording and all
Yeah,
that.
you really can. You can go. So at the end of the day, I think whether you're thinking about the AI or thinking about Google, you really should be thinking about the end user, right? So if you add an FAQ, you should be thinking about like, how do I resonate with the actual human audience that is reading this content? And then when you do that, you will, as a default, be playing well into these like marketing channels you're caring about and getting found in those places. And so that being said, sometimes we get too comfortable and we don't say who the audience is or put the keyword in, etc. So I do sometimes like just look at my content through both lenses. Like on the one hand, I can overdo it and shove keywords everywhere, and then it doesn't read well. It screams SEO or an answer engine optimization now and things like that. And on the other side of it, I can give like no context, right? So you can't even tell like a business I am. And so that also doesn't work. So you want to make sure if you add an FAQ, you don't have to overdo the questions like crazy. Who do you think the best WordPress like plug? You don't have to go crazy, but you do want to make sure there's context behind your FAQ questions, your headers, and things like that. So that if you were to take, I like a tool called Detailed, it's like a Chrome extension, and you can play around with it where you can just look at like the headers on your page and you don't see the content behind it. So you see the outline, and I should be able to get like the concept of your entire web page from that outline, meaning I should know who you are, what you do. Like I should get the meat, whether it's a blog post or whatever the topic is of the page. And that's for me a gut check of if I can't get the meat of the topic, I probably didn't use those keywords enough in those pertinent places. And if I just see the keyword weaving down the whole list of all the headers, then I probably overdid it, right?
That's cool. Uh, Speaking of headers, I feel like this is something that writers for SEO learn gradually in terms of heading structure.
Yeah.
So, this also gets into the word count question of how long does a post need to be, but also like H2s and H3s and all this stuff. Like, what's a good average if we're going to do an authoritative piece about something? What would an example post look like?
Yeah, so even though it's a little bit like still old school SEO to think in terms of word count, I still do when I create content on my site, on client sites, etc. And I typically in this kind of era am aiming around 1,000 words. And I know that I've picked a topic that is specific enough when I can cover it in 1,000 words. So if I need way more words to cover the topic than 1,000, then I probably pick something too much like a definitive guide, and it's going to come out being too generic, right? And not go deep enough into that subject matter expertise. And if I can't write about 1,000 words about it, I probably went too specific or I glossed over something, etc. So that somewhere 800 to 1,200 words, 1,000-ish words tends to, in my mind's eye, be like a good amount of content. And then within that, you've got to break it up because 1,000 words is still a lot for people to read. And so you want to break it up into sections with headers, and it depends on what the format of the post is. If it's five best, whatever, you'll probably have a header above the list. And then each item in the list will be like an H3. So if the title of your post is the H1, some title or header above the list, and then you're going to hit on H3s down below it. But again, you see all sorts of exceptions. You want to keep the structure, but If you decide to use H4s instead of H3s because it looks a little bit better on the in the blog post formatting, it's probably not going to be the deal breaker. Like it'll still have its form, it'll just violate some smaller SEO principles.
So our SEO checklist is probably about 50 items long. Is there anything we can stop doing in SEO,
Good question.
or like
Um,
just it's not as relevant as it used to be thing?
Good question. Without looking at the checklist, it's hard for me to like necessarily answer what's less relevant. I'd say one area people debate about how important it is customizing the page title and meta description because Google so often creates its own text there. I'm still like a big fan of customizing it because it's just to put your best foot forward and market the page how you would want to market it by customizing those fields, knowing that Google may choose to do its own thing. So that's one area where some people I think are putting less emphasis, but I still like to have that sort of control, knowing I have no control with what they do. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Alt text, I would say, is more important. Web accessibility and good image naming, etc. I would add like extra time and attention to. I still see a lot of people just skip over things related to images, whether it's file name, the alternative text, the file size, etc. Yeah, those are the big ones that people tend to either skip or kind of debate their value.
Is there any SEO AI tools that you recommend? For example, sometimes I get frustrated with ChatGPT when I'm like, hey, here's the whole article. I need a meta description. This is the phrase I'm targeting. This is the content brief. This is everything. And it still gives me something that's way too long and generic and doesn't fit in the box.
Yeah,
I, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong,
no.
or if there's other tools that are just more or SEO friendly for AI.
So I think there's so many tools out there right now. You could just do nothing but play with these AI, SEO, overlapping tools, etc. And so I like to keep things pretty simple. So I find myself using ChatGPT the most, but then relying on the built-in AI functionality of things I already use in a WordPress site, for example. So Yoast with the premium version, you get some AI-based tooling right directly in there. And so I personally am a fan of if you're writing a page title and meta description and you're like copying and pasting and then not really liking the output from the AI, you can turn to the AI built into WordPress in that plugin and rely on it. And it is accelerating things like there are plugins that can help you generate that alternative text on images and help you keep that up to date, etc. So there are a lot of tools I think in the WordPress space that have been really helpful in terms of, and then you don't have to go and pay for some other third party SEO powered or AI powered SEO tool. Yeah, that's what's been working best for me.
More niche SEO question. I see some people, and myself included, sometimes struggle with keyword research in the sense of, okay, now we have all these keywords and we have these clusters of keywords around this keyword and all this stuff. How do you think about keywords these days?
So I think about keywords every time in the same way and use the same framework when I'm getting started, and it's the customer acquisition funnel. So I think about basically this funnel where at the bottom I have the conversion, right? So it's people generally speaking for like searching for keywords that are your brand name, your name, etc. So that's at the bottom of the funnel. And then in the middle of the funnel, you're talking about the consideration phase. Those are like those best of, right? Or just they're looking for your product, they're looking for your offering, they're looking for course could be in their keyword search or something like that, right? So they are in a shopping state of mind, but they're looking for the thing that you sell. That's the middle of the funnel. That usually maps on a website to pages or collection pages, taxonomy pages, things that are like that in your main navigation. And then at the top of your funnel, you have the awareness building. And that's where you're like thinking about how do I get out there and share that expertise? Or how do I get out there and get in front of somebody one or two steps before they're ready for the thing I do? So if you were that interior designer and you wrote a blog post of like best architects in your city, that would be an example of reaching that upper funnel because you're getting in front of the right audience, just like they're not quite ready for what you do, but they will be in a little bit. So you're building brand awareness. So whenever I do keyword research, I think in this like real world model. And then I think about where am I today and what's realistic. So I don't have to go and do a ton of research for my upper funnel, like audience building campaign. If I'm just building my first website and getting started, I should just start with the bottom of the funnel and showing up for my own name, my brand, etc. And then start to build from there. On the other hand, if you play in a really competitive space, you might just put your best foot forward in that middle section of the funnel. But realistically, it might be like Lifter does well in the best queries and has a lot of trust and authority and reviews and has put a lot of effort in. If you were just entering that space, there's not reason really to play very aggressively there. You should probably just skip to the upper funnel. So when it comes to keyword research, I instantly start to think about like how my keywords map into these different parts of the funnel, and then just instantly start thinking along the lines of what's realistic. And if I were to spend 1 hour doing something, in which section of the funnel would I have the most impact right now? And that helps me from getting overly exhausted with an endless amount of keyword research. The other thing is that you can turn to tools like ChatGPT to help you with your keyword research and like export data from the Google Search Console and help it organize the keywords into a funnel, pull data from multiple data sources like Search Console. And if you have like rank tracking software, we use Wincher, for example, you can like have it do some of this organization and thought process for you, which has been a nice accelerator too.
That's awesome. Lindsay, this is like a masterclass in SEO and AI. One quick question. What is the proper SEO for AI? Does that have an acronym yet?
Yeah, we just actually published a blog post because people are starting to do search queries like SEO versus.
Uh,
We think it's like SEO and because it's like all getting pushed under one umbrella. But you're gonna see the phrase generative engine optimization, so GEO, and then you
Okay.
also see answer engine optimization, so AEO. And it starts to get a lot of acronyms. Like most of the people I talk to, like just keeping PPC from SEO separate. And so the good news is, though, again, there's this convergence. The fundamentals of what you work on in like a holistic SEO project are the same things as investing in those other kind of initiatives. There's just like little extras like the LLMS, TXT, etc. But some
Yeah.
of those things don't really matter till you're a little bit further down the line, anyways, like Lifter is, where you have a lot of content, you have a lot of training material out there. And so, yeah, just starting with the fundamentals and making sure you have a solid base is really the name of the game, whether it's SEO, GEO, or AEO. Yeah, I'm gonna be getting it mixed up myself, and so I try not to use any of those. Like when I'm in kind of agency mode talking to clients, we talk about getting found on Google, getting found on ChatGPT, things that we can all relate to.
Tell us about Pathfinder. If someone wants to go deeper with SEO, what do you offer at Pathfinder?
We call it a guided approach to SEO. And within our guided approach, we have community, coaching, and courses, all designed to help you take a step by step approach that's backed with coaching and accountability. So you can come to group office hours as one of our members, get your questions answered, get feedback on your work. You can go through our checklists and in our courses to take a step by step approach that'll help you get from point A to point B. There are discussion threads in there and a whole lot more. We have a 14-day free trial if you want to check it out with kind of no risk and learn a little bit more about SEO, but more importantly, learn while doing. And that's a lot of what we try to help people do is a lot of people will go invest like 10 hours trying to learn SEO, but not do anything that moves the needle forward. We want to change that around where if you do invest 10 hours in SEO, like an hour is the learning and 9 hours is the doing so that you actually see a result.
Results working with Pathfinder is we had actual posts we were working on and getting feedback and doing training, like looking at a specific project is it's applied, it's project-based learning. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun, and then there's a community, and so that's always that just nice to be around others trying to do the same thing you are and realize it doesn't have to be confusing, overwhelming, time consuming, expensive. That SEO really is real world marketing, and there's a lot of value in the short and long run when you get going with it.
Well, this has been great, Lindsay. Thank you so much. Go check out pathfinderseo.com. Is there anywhere else people can connect with you or find out more?
I'm also on some social channels like Facebook and Instagram. But yes, our website is the best place. You can always shoot me an email if you have any questions, Lindsay at Pathfinder SEO, and that's my quickest response.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Chris.
And that's a wrap for this episode of LMS Cast. Did you enjoy that episode? Tell your friends and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And I've got a gift for you over at lifterlms.com/gift. Go to lifterlms.com/gift. Keep learning, keep taking action, and I'll see you in the next episode.